Now, welcome to another edition of News from Naboo with Thor's Lightning Takes. Let's get right to the news.
Okay. Well, we'll start out today talking about Andor, seeing as we are so close now.
Days away, just a couple days away.
So, Andor. Length of the series and character development. Showrunner Tony Gilroy, along with actors Kyle Soller and Denise Go, did an interview with ABC's On the Red Carpet, Andor. Yeah, it was like a little interview special for them.
Oh.
Yay. Gilroy says, "There's a new dial on everybody's console, which is how long should my story be? Is it 5 episodes? Is it 7? Is it 12? What is it? You gotta pick the right number." So he's grinning from ear to ear. He's super excited about his project. He says it's really fantastic to be able to stretch out, to have a Dickensian amount of characters and interact and tell a massive story. You don't want to waste time. You want to keep your skills, your compression skills, but man, it's very liberating.
Yeah, I think that's part of what everybody loves about, long-form television shows these days, is you don't have to compress not that you shouldn't compress some things. It's a fine balance, right, between too ponderous and too kind of,
Absolutely.
losing the plot and developing characters. It's a beautiful thing when it's done right, and it can be bad when it's done either way wrong. Too compressed or too kind of, where you lose
too out there, yeah.
Yeah. And so let's hope Gilroy has found the balance between those two, because I've certainly seen both shows. I've seen shows that are like, why is this 10 episodes when it could have been done in 3? I've seen shows where 6 episodes. This could have been like 5 seasons. What are you doing?
All right. Well, Denise Go, who plays the Imperial Supervisor, Deidre Miro, explained how the show went from 5 seasons to 2. She says, "We sort of signed up for 5 years. We thought there were going to be 5 seasons of this. Then, thankfully, Diego was like, I'll die if I do 5 seasons. So they condensed it into this amazing, I don't know how he's done it, but he has. Condensed. Tony Gilroy has managed to do 1 more season, and you're going to have the whole story."
I think it's going to be strange how that first season's going to be, stretched out. And like I said, like we were just talking about, hopefully not too stretched out, butter scraped over too much bread or anything like that. But is it going to feel weird when season 2 rolls around and it's just like, okay, 3 episodes is a year, 3 episodes is a year, and is it going to feel like a completely different...
I don't think... We've been watching Game of Thrones.
House of the Dragon, you mean, yeah.
Yeah. But if you don't say their original names first, no one will know what it is.
I think plenty of people know House of the Dragon.
Why do you think
just
it's called
on
Lord of the
name
Rings, Ring with Power?
Because otherwise no one would know it was Lord of the Rings, because it's
exactly.
so... But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
They do a time jumping every episode.
They do.
And, I think it's set up that the next episode is going to be 10 years after the one we just saw. So, if they can manage the time jumps, I don't see why Star Wars can't.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm simply saying House of the Dragon has come out of the gate kind of like, okay, this episode is 2 years later. The original Game of Thrones was pretty much one continuous... it's funny how it's like 8 seasons, but it really, in the books, takes place over the course of a year or two, really. And so, that's it's kind of a weird... again, that's neither here nor there. But I'm curious, because this will come out of the gates as kind of like exploring this one time period, right? More or less this first year.
Yes.
And then we're going to have, the next season, which is going to explore multiple years kind of condensed. I'm not saying it's going to be bad or too jarring or anything like that. I think it's just going to be interesting to see how they pull it off. It does make sense. You take that first season, you really establish your characters, and then you put them through their paces in the next season, right? And get to the finish line. Hopefully not too quickly.
Kyle Soller, who plays the Imperial security agent Cyril Karn, kind of how expressed the fate of his character. He says for a long time, it was like a coin toss to Tony Gilroy. He says, Tony kind of condensed what was going to happen for the rest of the season, but he hadn't written it yet. And when he was talking about Cyril, he's sort of like, at this point, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? I don't know. Is he going to end up like this? Is he going to end up like that? I don't know. And I was like, okay, man, I'll just take that as a starting point and use that gray area and complexity like he is or he isn't.
Well, that's the fun of being a writer. You don't always know. A good writer doesn't... that sounds crazy, and this is just my opinion. You can totally disagree on writing, but in my opinion, a good writer doesn't necessarily know where the character is going to go from the very beginning. They kind of let the character become their own character. I know that sounds silly, but I've certainly done my fair of fan fictions, where I had a plan, I had a general idea, an outline, and then as I'm going, I'm like, no, that's not where this character's headed. This is not the direction, and it changes. And I think that's a sign of personally, I mean, again, that's because something I do, but I personally think that's a sign of a good writer when they don't necessarily always just have everything set in stone. This is how it must be, where they're willing to let the characters drive the story.
But it's
quite
interesting.
Literally.
Now we have a character who we won't, as an audience, know if he's going to turn or not, because the writer
doesn't
didn't
know.
have an idea quite then.
And don't get me wrong, you should have a plan. Like, there's a difference between having a plan for your story and just knowing every little gritty detail of every character. And, obviously, we can look at the sequels and say there should have been a plan for these characters, a general map and outline, instead of just letting them, each writer, come in and do different things. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's not a bad thing that a writer isn't just set in stone on everything. Like, that tends to lead to a better story.
Well, Go weighed in and confirmed that her character will stay on the Imperial side the whole way through. There's no angle with her other than the fact that she is completely against the heroes. She looked at Solar at this point and goes, but it makes total sense to give you that note before it even starts. So even within creating a character, you're like, I'm not sure. But it was like he needed me to commit to, don't try to make this girl sweet and nice underneath it all. He just wanted me to go hell for leather. So.
Good. We don't always need that. Like, it's kind of become
Not
that.
every bad guy needs to be a secret good guy.
Yeah, it's kind of become almost a modern trope that all bad guys have a terrible and tragic story that led them. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Most people who turn out to be quote unquote evil in this world probably had something go wrong in their life. I'm not saying, that evil is always just
all in for the
born.
Empire.
Yeah, but sometimes a good villain is someone who's just born evil and just is evil for the sake of being evil. You don't always need this is their tragic story so you shed a little tear when they die.
Empire doesn't see themselves as evil.
Well, no,
she
but
sees
you know
herself
what I mean.
as committed,
Yeah,
dedicated 100%
sure,
to her
yes.
cause.
Most of the time, that is one thing that does make a good villain. They don't necessarily think of themselves as evil, right?
Right. Well, Gilroy is telling a grounded, complex, and layered Star Wars story. According to him, we will know how true that is soon enough. Next article today. Star Wars Eclipse will retain the fundamentals of Quantic Dream game design. IGN Japan recently spoke with the Quantum Dreams CEO, who stated that Eclipse is going to feel kind of more in line with the other studios' titles, what they're known for, but it's, of course, much larger in scope and potentially a greater variety of gameplay. He says, I think with each new title, we try to innovate, we try to explore new ground. With Star Wars Eclipse, we're certainly going to keep the fundamental elements of a Quantic Dream game, very strong story, very strong characters, multiple playable characters, and of course, giving the players the possibility to change through their actions and decisions how the story unfolds. The title is set during High Republic era, which covers hundreds of years, but with the trailer and stuff, you can kind of try to figure out when this time period is. I mean, there is, in the trailer, there was a Naboo N1 starfighter, and a battle involving a Trade Federation ship, possibly, it would have looked like to me, which might indicate the story is set closer to the Phantom Menace.
Maybe in the time period of the Acolyte, which is supposed to be 50 years before the prequels. I don't know.
Very well could be. It's really hard to say. We don't have that information yet.
Yeah, we have nothing on this game except for don't expect it anytime soon, really. And what they're telling us here, which I've never played any Quantic Dream game before, so I don't know what that really...
Right.
I mean, I think it's Detroit being human. Is that the... I've kind of seen that game. So, I mean, I have an idea. It's kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure type thing. Where you kind of... I know that's old
poor
school.
Way of saying
I know that. But, I mean, where you're kind of making decisions and then that alters the story. And, I don't know if people even read choose-your-own-adventure books anymore. That was huge when I was a kid. But you know what I'm saying? Where it's kind of you're not necessarily an action-based game where you're playing through it. You're kind of making the choices and then things happen. As far as I know. I could be wrong.
So he says it's going to be a Quantic Dream title at heart, but he goes on to say where the formula is changing, we said very clearly we're doing an action-adventure, so the action elements are going to be very important. This is something we'll be able to speak about in the future, but keep in mind it is an action-adventure game. I mean, their titles include Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls and Detroit Become Human, which are literally point-and-click adventure games from like the 1990s with emphasis on player choice and what you're in,
choose your own adventure games.
Except it's more than that. It's just because they're so evolved. It's how does your choice impact the world, more or less.
Are you telling me those old choose your own adventure books were not?
Those were very set in stone and they had very few. I mean, you'd make a choice and it was
usually
like,
you die.
Well, you make a choice and it was like, oh, that ended in death, so you go back to the way you didn't die and you make a new choice. And
no, you start from the beginning. Cheater, God.
Alright, but he's saying that Star Wars gives them an opportunity to expand, beyond their usual horizons. When we had this opportunity to work on Star Wars, we said yes immediately because we were drawn to it. But we will continue to do what we do best, which is passionately work, craft our game with a lot of attention to detail, and with Star Wars Eclipse, we want to bring a whole new original story to Star Wars universe. We really wanted to do a Star Wars game that particular franchise with whom we grew, we discovered, and we were in awe of as children. We know this game is not coming anytime soon. Some reports are saying it may not come out till like 2027, 2028. We have no clue.
Yep, like 5
we'll know
years
when
away.
The world knows.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to everyone's favorite segment. New this week in Star Wars, etc. Do you just not learn? I told you every week to stop that.
All right, my bad.
If you do it next week, I'm gonna cut it out. I'm gonna record my thing without you. Redo it.
So if it doesn't happen next week, it's probably because I did it and you just edited it out.
Yep,
just so everybody knows.
That's the future, because Andor is Wednesday morning. Super early, but it is there. 3 episodes. Stay up late, get up early, it's your choice.
Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, or 2 o'clock here in the Central Time Zone for us.
Yay. I mean, I'm super excited, but I also hate the time it comes out. But
I wish it just did the midnight Eastern like Rings of Power does, like Amazon seems to do. Yeah.
And we'd get to watch it at 11, which would be good.
That's fine.
Also on Wednesday for comics, we have Vader 27. He is still hanging out with Sabe. Former Padme handmaiden.
Yeah, that's been going on for a while.
Eventually they're going to fall apart because, I mean, she's got purist good ideas and he works for the Empire.
And he's Darth Vader, enough said, yeah.
We also have Mando number 3. They are continuing to just translate The Mandalorian Season 1 into comic book form. This one is taking us back to the client with Baby Grogu in tow to trade him in for some credits.
I wonder what happens.
I have no idea. And we have Dark Horse Hyperspace Stories number 2. Thursday, She-Hulk number 6. And Rings of Power episode 5.
That's Friday, technically. Or Thursday night if you do that.
It's Thursday for us.
You do the midnight release thing, yeah.
Yep. Friday, Target will have their Andor figures up. Pre-order at 10 a.m. Central Time. Imperial Officer from Ferrix and Shore Trooper. So, kind of more generic figures. But don't worry, they're totally not just repaints and stuff.
No, not at all. No, totally not.
Also on Friday, James Cameron's Avatar will be re-releasing to theaters, updated to 4K quality, and back in 3D as well. Yay! I'm excited.
Yes you are.
Lastly, Sunday will be episode 6 of House of the Dragon.
Yay. Alright, well that's all we got for this time, so take to the comments below, tell us what you think of any and all of today's news, and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.